Well, today we're reading Acts chapters 18 through 20. We begin in Acts chapter 18 with Paul going to Corinth. Now, as you know, he ended up writing 2 full epistles to the church of Corinth there. There he meets a couple named Aquila and Priscilla. I just like the ring of the names of that couple right there. Then it's back to Antioch after that. Now, in verse 23 of chapter 18, this begins Paul's third missionary journey. I have a map on the page there if you're curious about exactly where he went. Long trip, by the way. Begins in Jerusalem, or rather, should I say, begins in Antioch and ends up back in Jerusalem. And we'll see later on that when he gets back to Jerusalem, there's big trouble brewing in Jerusalem for the Apostle Paul. Then we see in Acts chapter 19, Paul in Ephesus, and then in Acts chapter 19, verses 11 through 20, a humorous story. Read that one about some guys that bit off more than they could chew. In chapter 19, we see that Paul interferes with the local economy there. And as a result, he heads for Macedonia and Greece. Sometimes a preacher can kind of be concerned about whether he's, interesting enough. Well, I take some consolation in the fact that in Acts chapter 20, verses 7 through 16, we have an occasion where Paul is preaching and a guy listening falls asleep and falls out of a third-story window. Now, I've never been that dull. Well, perhaps only because they weren't sitting 3 stories up listening to me in a window. And then in chapter 20, Paul addresses the elders in Ephesus. A pretty significant message there. We get some doctrinal implications from that chapter. Hope you read it. Hope you read the whole thing. I know you get a lot out of today's reading, if you read it closely especially, and we'll see you tomorrow.